Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A pensioner from southeast London has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a suspected burglar was fatally stabbed. Police are questioning the man about the incident, which happened shortly after midnight. Our correspondent Jessica Parker reports.
Stabbing. They tried to revive him. I think he's gone.
Residents watch on as emergency crews try to revive a man in the early hours of this morning. Police say a 38-year-old suspected burglar was stabbed after a struggle with the 78-year-old homeowner. Earlier reports said that a suspect had forced the pensioner into the kitchen with claims that the intruder was armed with a screwdriver. The neighbour who filmed the footage says she saw one suspect flee the scene in a van, leaving the other injured behind on the road.
We ran over to him and he was just staring at us going and I knew he was going to go because his pupils were dilating. I thought he was going to go, and then the police turned up.
A frightening experience?
Yeah, very. I'll not forget that because he was staring right into my eyes.
Now, the incident happened at a property on South Park Crescent, but the injured suspect was actually found collapsed down on Further Green Road. He was taken to a hospital in central London where he was pronounced dead at just after 3:30 this morning. The man who lived in the house is now being held on suspicion of murder. It's a case that will remind some of Tony Martin, the Norfolk farmer who was jailed for killing a burglar at his home in 1999. People in this area of South London say burglary is a long-standing concern, but this incident will stand out for its fatal consequences. Jessica Parker, BBC News.
A 78-year-old pensioner has been arrested on suspicion of murder after an intruder died after being stabbed. A scuffle broke out when the man discovered two suspected burglars, one of them armed with a screwdriver, inside his house. The case reopens the debate over exactly how much force householders can use to protect themselves. Juliet Bremner has more.
This is believed to be the 78-year-old man tonight being questioned by police on suspicion of murder. Named by neighbours as Richard Osborne Brooks, he's understood to have confronted one of two suspected burglars who broke into his home. Forensic officers were today examining his terraced house in a suburb of southeast London. The pensioner is alleged to have stabbed a 38-year-old man in the chest after a scuffle broke out in the kitchen. Neighbours said Mr Osborne Brooks helped to care for his disabled wife.
A nice bloke, keeps himself to himself. Never any problems. To be honest, I don't see him that much, but I know this street is quite quiet. But
So you were shocked to hear what happened?
oh yeah, very shocked. Yeah, but like I say, there's been a spate of burglaries lately. That's why all the gates have gone up.
The injured man collapsed on a pavement in the next street. Paramedics were unable to save his life. The second suspect is believed to have run off. The sequence of events has echoes of the Tony Martin controversy. Nearly 20 years ago, he shot an intruder at his remote farmhouse in Norfolk. He was charged with murder, later reduced to manslaughter. The law states you can use reasonable force to protect yourself or others inside your home, or to stop an intruder from escaping, but it doesn't define reasonable. You can face prosecution if you carry on attacking someone when you're no longer in danger. In Hither Green, where there have been a spate of burglaries, the community want more protection.
I understand there's also a petition which is already going around, and we'd want to know that it's important for persons able to defend their castle. Their home is your castle and your neighborhood is your kingdom to a certain extent.
As detectives continued to question the pensioner, other officers today searched surrounding streets for more evidence.
It's a relatively quiet suburban area, and although it's true that they've had security gates fitted here because of burglaries, most people I've spoken to thought the crime rate was dropping. They can't really believe that such violent events unfolded. But tonight we have one man dead and a 78-year-old pensioner still in police custody.
Juliet Bremner in southeast London, thank you. The body of a newborn baby has been found in Greater Manchester. Local residents have laid flowers and teddy bears near the scene in Haywood, near Rochdale. Police have sealed off a wooded area next to a field and have been searching it with sniffer dogs.
Now, a 78-year-old man is being held on suspicion of murder after a burglary suspect died from a stab wound at the pensioner's home. Police were called in the early hours of this morning after two men allegedly broke into a house in southeast London. A 38-year-old man was fatally injured. Fatima Manji is outside the property. Fatima.
John, police say at around 1:45 this morning, a 78-year-old man found two male intruders inside his house. Now, reports say that one of these intruders went upstairs. The other forced the pensioner into the kitchen using a screwdriver, and a struggle ensued between the pensioner and this intruder, in which time the intruder was stabbed. Now, at around 3 o'clock, an ambulance was called later in this area, but that man died in a central London hospital. As for the accomplice, the suspected accomplice is said to have fled the scene. As for the pensioner, he has been arrested and taken to a police station. He reportedly has some bruising on his arms. Initially was arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm, but that has since been upgraded and he's been rearrested on suspicion of murder. Now, this is very early stage. There have been no charges. We are yet to talk about anything like a court case, but this is going to be potentially quite a controversial case, and there are echoes of a case from 1999 involving a Norfolk farmer, Tony Martin. Many viewers will remember that the issue then was about what is reasonable force that a homeowner can use to defend themselves. Tony Martin at the time shot a burglar in the back. This is very early stage. We can't speculate. There has only been an arrest made, but certainly a public debate over what is reasonable force to use against an intruder in your home is likely to ensue. John.
Fatima Manji.
OK, let's have a look at the Express. And the stabbing of a burglar and a 78-year-old man arrested.
I know, which is in his house with his wife. He's 78. They're elderly. We're told they hear two people downstairs. There's a struggle, and somebody is dead. For legal reasons, we are restricted to some extent how far we can go.
No, it's an active case, and we don't want to prejudice anything.
Yeah, well, that's the legal reasons. I'm sorry somebody's dead, but I hope this guy is all right and his wife is all right. And you wouldn't know what would happen if it was in your house or with your parents.
And the law has been clarified over the years, much more in favour of the homeowner, the occupier, so that they are more entitled to use what could be called disproportionate violence to protect the home. And quite right, if that old idea of your home is your castle.
Yeah, if you genuinely believe you're in danger, but...
Without getting into any specifics, there'll be a huge popular groundswell of support for somebody who uses force to defend his wife and his home.
Yeah, and that column on the right-hand side talking about the law, as you were discussing, disproportionate force as long as they genuinely believe such drastic measures are necessary. And the picture there of Tony Martin, because the law was clarified after that very famous...
That's right. Well, if you remember Tony Martin, the person was... the 18-year-old was retreating and he illegally held a sawn-off shotgun. Yeah. That's why he was found guilty in that case.
Yeah, and of course we don't know the circumstances of this case, but a 78-year-old man has been arrested.
I hope he's all right.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Let's have
Any
a look.
man who can drink 2 pints of Guinness in one go.
Yeah, you've never bought 2 pints. You've never even bought one pint, have you?
You've never bought a drink.
And we're joined tonight by Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Good evening to you both. Welcome to Wednesdays. We're going to kick off with The Mirror, which, like many of the papers, leads on the story of the burglar and the arrest of a 78-year-old homeowner.
It's on a lot of front pages, and I'm not surprised. When I heard about it this morning, I thought that would be the splash in the Mail. It is. Wasn't surprised it's on the front of The Mirror. It goes to the heart of all our fears and all our anxieties. You're asleep at home and you hear someone in your house. What do? Do you lock the door? Do you cower under the duvet cover? This chap, Richard Osborne Brooks, 78, his wife, we understand, isn't terribly well. He went down to explore, found 2 people in his home. Can't get into too much detail, obviously, because he's been arrested, but there was a struggle and the burglar has died. Now, there will be huge public sympathy, not for the burglar, for the homeowner, because he was doing what people would do, I hope I might do in those circumstances, defending my home and my family. And the law was changed some years ago. It was clarified because there was so much concern that the law was always on the side of the, not on the side of the victim, because he's the victim here, because his home was being burgled. And the law allows you to use what could be considered disproportionate violence if you feel your home and your safety is being imperilled. So that's now for the courts to decide what will happen. But this man will be seen as a public hero.
It's why it's on five fronts. What, the Metro, Telegraph, Express, as well as the Mirror.
Well, yeah.
And the Eye, 6, and
yeah.
you know, have all led on this. Because, as he says, it's everybody's fear.
Let's have a look at the Mail, actually, because that's got a double-page spread
You go inside, there's a lot of detail in there. But what keeps coming back in this report are his neighbours saying he's a really nice guy, very gentle, his wife's got health problems, she was in bed too. But also, what are burglars doing in his house in the middle of the night? So there's huge sympathy for him, and I'm very sorry somebody has died and but a family has lost a member here. The burglar is dead. It will be for the police inquiries and then possibly a trial to determine how that has happened. But I too have just huge sympathy for this man, and I hope he is okay. He's got to be arrested because somebody is dead, and he has to be questioned.
Due process has to be gone through,
the police have to work out...
In order for the police to establish the facts.
Yeah, exactly. But you can read the details of allegations that screwdrivers were being carried by the burglars and so on. They're very sharp, instruments. But this guy just sounds quite a nice, ordinary bloke. And in fact, somebody who used to work with him
in suburbia
said he was always more of a pal than a boss when he was in charge of him. So.
It has sparked that debate again over people's right to defend their homes.
Course, some years ago, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, I remember when William Hague was Tory leader, there was the debate over the man called Tony Martin, who was a reclusive figure, lived alone, was often, his home was attacked, and he took an unlawful shotgun to a young man who was in his home, who was going the other way, i.e. was shot in the back, and there was a big debate about whether he had used disproportionate force or not. He went to prison. The whole experience for Tony Martin was a disaster. I don't think he ever went back to the house.
No, but that was an unlawful sawed-off shotgun. I think this case is very different.
And the law's been clarified, hasn't it?
I think the law's in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
And I think police, when they investigate these cases, are pretty sensible about it. If you found a burglar and you tied that burglar to a chair and then tortured that burglar for an hour...
Which you might be tempted to do, frankly, but you wouldn't do.
No, you could sometimes understand the emotional...
that's what I mean,
But that would be unlawful. If you chase someone out of your house 100 yards down the street and then, you trap them and then you start beating them with a golf club, that's not allowed. But in your house, you are allowed to defend.
If you feel genuinely at risk and
You're allowed to defend yourself. Yes, absolutely.
And the struggle took place in the kitchen, apparently. We don't know how the guy died, but possibly it was his own screwdriver that he was impaled on.
But this guy...
But he would have brought that screwdriver as a weapon to intimidate a 78-year-old man and his wife.
And we don't know the circumstances, but what we do know is that the second alleged burglar is on the run, hasn't been caught.
Well, according to an eyewitness report in the Mail here, the burglar on the run, the white van, was seen trying to help a moaning and groaning guy, obviously the stabbed guy, into a van. He couldn't get him up. People looked out, so he left him.
Nice.
So he left his accomplice, alleged accomplice, to be very legal about this, left the alleged accomplice dying and fled thinking of himself. Now, of course, the evidence of that person, if they're ever traced... I might have to take it with a pinch of salt, but it will be important. But the sympathy...
police in the capital have got their hands rather full at the moment, given the crime rate.
Tonight. Exactly, because there's been a 49th fatal killing tonight, a stabbing. Hackney, certain part of London. A lot of these killings are taking place in certain parts of London, where it's often black-on-black crime, and that's often been the case in Hackney, where I used to live, and it was a problem when I was there 10 years ago. It's going to be a big debate about whether they should increase stop and search, whether there are enough police officers, and why do so many young men in certain communities take guns and knives out.
And it tends to
join gangs.
And it tends to be young men are the violent.
I've been